for Distortion.
And welcome to the best of the podcast. My name is Brando. So today we're going to put all the best of the interviews that we've done in 2020. Big names that we've had on the podcast. Gilby Clarke, Eddie Trunk, Susan Holmes McKagan, Vicky Hamilton, GNR's first manager, Matt Sorum, Dave Mustaine, Roberta Freeman, Traci Amos. Traci and Roberta both on the podcast this year. Harry Shearer from The Simpsons, Doug Goldstein, Scott Stapp, who's actually going to be playing Frank Sinatra in a movie coming up. That's a story for another time. Rob Halford, the metal god, was on the show this year. Robby Krieger, the legend from The Doors. Suspect 208, featuring London Hudson, Slash's eldest son, Noah Wyland. You had Ty Truio and Nico Sangaris, Suspect 208. Stephen Pearcy from Rat, and Frank Ferrer from a band called Guns N' Roses. So sit back, relax, however you enjoy Appetite for Distortion, however you listen to the podcast. Enjoy the best of 2020. I'm excited to talk to you today because honestly, Dave, there was nothing I wanted to do on my birthday than to talk to you about Rust.
It's your birthday today?
It is.
Holy cow. Are you married?
Let's just say soonish.
You got a girlfriend?
I do.
Are you going to get laid today?
No comment. That may or may not have happened.
It's your birthday and you're not going to get, old in, out,
Oh, no, it happened this morning before
early riser. Afternoon delight. Okay. Remember that song, that horrible song?
I do. I do. Awesome. But I don't want to talk about horrible music. I want to talk about great music.
All right, let's talk.
To celebrate your anniversary of sorts, Rust in Peace, what inspired you, I guess, to you do this unique way of reissues? And there's a lot of ways to celebrate an anniversary, but to put together a book, and like how you did it, where it's thoughts of so many different people. What was the catalyst to inspire you to put this to book?
Well, I've always tried to be an innovator with the things that I do. There's not really very many original things left in this world, so either you just are going to have to grin and face it, or you're going to have to work extra hard. So I think when we started doing the package for this, granted we have a box set coming out for everything, but this was something really different. It was telling the story behind the story because, everybody knew that I was completely out of control with my addictions and stuff, but nobody knew that about Ellefson. So when the book starts off, and then within the first 2.5 pages, he's addressing and confessing his heroin addiction, that pretty much grabs the reader by the old sack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, I often talk about on this podcast sobriety and addiction. This December will be about 5 years for me since I've had a drink. And I've had Dave on the show before, and he's a wonderful guy. And I'm glad to see him and you come out the other side. And somebody else who's come out through the other side, we talk about a lot on this podcast, is Slash. If you need to get that, I understand. I don't know if the president's calling you.
No, we talked this morning while you were doing your life.
Right on. What made you want to have Slash write the forward, I guess? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that were inspired by you.
I think anybody would have wanted to have Slash write it, but the thing is, it actually was part of an interview that he did with somebody else and was part of our team, and they said it was just a really great thing that Slash had been talking about you, and why don't you use that? And when I read it, I was just gloating. It was just great. It's great to have people say nice stuff about you like that, but guys that you really look up to, not just because they're successful, because, I'm successful too, but we were close. We spent a lot of time together. David spent more time with Slash than I did, but I think that we had that guitar player bond.
Right on. I want to ask, while we're kind of on that subject a little bit, the chapter, called Axel Calls. Can you talk to me about just a phone call from Axl Rose, how it kind of put a monkey wrench in the production of the record?
Well, it did. It kind of put a monkey wrench in things, I guess you could say. But I think we were going into it with the right headspace because we knew that the possibility was that everything was going to get fucked. So we started the record. Mike told us if Axl calls, he's going to have to go and finish their record because he had just done their record. Their record was bigger than any of ours. And he had made a commitment to them already. And more important than sales or any of that stuff was the commitment, the word, his word. So when he said he had to go, I was okay with it. Wasn't happy, but I was okay with it.
4 years ago today, it was not a joke, the April Fool's joke that Guns N' Roses played the Troubadour. When did you first find out that all of this was going to happen, the reunion? Because before, most people, the public knows, or did you not find out until they finally hit the stage? What was your timeline of the whole GNR reunion?
Well, it's funny because leading into the official announcement of the reunion, there were countless reports and rumors and people out there saying it was fact and what have you. And I shied away from but announcing or broadcasting that was fact because I honestly didn't know. I had heard some stuff on the inside, and I'd heard some people that it was a done deal. But, I have a relationship with a lot of the guys in that band. And I just didn't want to be that guy who was going to sort of steal their thunder. So although a lot of people were in my ear telling me it was a done deal, and by the way, not anybody in the actual band, but people very close to their business and people I know in the industry, I refrained from going public with it really just because, I've done a couple. I was really the only guy that did a couple things with Axl in the last few years.
Right.
Slash is a close friend, as is Duff. The other guys in the band I know really well, Frank and Richard and all of them. So I didn't want to be that guy. Dizzy. I love Dizzy. So I didn't want to be that guy, and I wanted to just kind of let it play out organically how it was going to play out. And I didn't know what was real, and I didn't really 100% know what was going on. And the really funny story about all that is that, and I will never forget this, and to this day I forgot to ask him what it was really all about, but Slash and I text a lot, but rarely do we actually talk on the phone because, I do that with tons of people. You just, it's almost weird. I was saying to a friend the other day, it's almost weird that the phone rings because you're like, whoa, the phone actually works as a phone, because so many people are, text everyone. I text my parents. I text everyone now.
Sure.
So I remember he called. I'll never forget it. I was driving somewhere and the phone rang and it was him. And I was like, this is weird because he never actually calls me or, if we die here and there, yeah, but usually it's a text. So phone rings and it's him, and I answer and I go, hey man, what's going on? You okay? And he's like, oh yeah. And I said, so what are you up to? He goes, oh, I'm just, and he really had nothing to say. And I just thought it was like the strangest call I ever had from him back in the days when he was getting loaded. And I said, and then I remember he said to me, I've never really told this story before, and then he said to me, he goes, because he will from time to time pick my brain about stuff going on out there and what I hear, and just sort of like, he doesn't stay overly tuned in to what's going on in the world of other bands or what have you. So he said to me, yeah man, what are you hearing about all this stuff about Guns and reuniting and all that? Huh. And I go, you're asking me? And he's like, well, yeah, man. He goes, because you got your ear to the ground. What are people saying? I don't know anything about this. And I go, really? I said, so you know nothing about it? He goes, no, man. He goes, I don't know what people are talking about. I'm doing my thing. And I'm very close with his band, the Conspirators, sure. All those guys I'm really close with. They're great friends. And I said to him, I don't know, man. I said, I'm just telling you it's out there, and it's out there heavy. And he goes, yeah, I don't know. I'm really not sure where it's all coming from. And I'm just focused on the conspirator stuff. And I just, I don't really know anything, man. I don't know what's going on with all this. I go, wow, that's real interesting. So you don't know nothing. He's like, no, man. He goes, I mean, there's really just there's been some talk, but I don't know what's going on. And then I swear to you, like 3 days later, the reunion was announced.
What?
And to this day, and I keep forgetting, I just saw Slash a month ago because he was at the Alter Bridge show I was at to see Miles, and I to this day I keep forgetting to ask him what that was about, and I'm sure if I do, he's just going to give me like a smirk and not say too much because I'm sure it was just him doing some misdirection and having some fun with me, and knowing that since I'm so entrenched in that scene that he was just kind of seeing what I was going to say and just like throwing out misdirection. I mean, because he had to know what was going on then. So it's just really funny. And that was the first. So there was that. And then it officially got announced. And then I knew what was going on. And I did not go to the Troubadour, but I did go to the very first show in Vegas.
Then that relates to, as we were talking about Frank looking young and practicing and everything. And you said you'll practice no more than 2 hours a day. Right. Well, Guns N' Roses shows are 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So how hard is it for you? There we go. Kristen's back. So how hard is it for you to go from the 2 hours, or can you do the 3? Is it that extra gear for a show?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I only practice. I try not to practice more than 2 hours because we play such long shows. Yeah. When we rehearse the band rehearsals could be 5 hours. If we're working on stuff, if they introduce a new song into the set, I mean, we could be at a rehearsal for 5-6 hours. I mean, we play. That's a lot of drumming. So I try not to burn myself out, but that's the main reason why
okay. The rehearsals are that much more. That's when you're like,
No, rehearsals will be, we do, the shortest rehearsal will be 4 hours, and like a long rehearsal will be 6 hours.
Okay.
I mean, I'm playing. It's not like, just hanging out. I mean, we're playing, we're working on stuff. If like I said, if they introduce a couple of songs to the set, hey, let's try this song, or we haven't played this in a while, before how does that part go? I mean, that happens at rehearsals, and so rehearsals tend to be really long.
What's the body of songs? How many songs, if you go out on a typical arena tour, how many songs would there be that you could pick from for a different set?
I mean 40 probably.
Wow, it's unbelievable.
Probably 40. I have to sit down and count, but I would imagine 40.
Crazy.
Who makes the final?
Crazy.
And we play like 27 of them. We play almost all of them.
Yeah.
Do you have any say in the set list, or it's kind of like, here's the set
Me
list?
personally? I don't know about what say, but I can make suggestions. Hey, we haven't played this in a while, stuff like that. But it really comes down to like what the band is really comfortable doing, on a certain night. Most of the nights we'll have a certain set of songs that we'll do every night, but then there'll be, audibles. Hey, let's do this one tonight, or we're ready to do that one tonight. And if you're a fan, you could go through and see when we've played this song at this show, played that song at that show. Usually those are audibles.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite right now, or does it change?
Right. Well, I love "You Could Be Mine." I think it's the funnest rock and roll drum song I've ever played. I love the drum parts. The Sorum drum parts are dope. So that's I always get really up to play that. It's punk rocky. It's kind of has a AC/DC feel, but at the same time it has kind of like this punk rocky tribal thing at the beginning of it. So it's like I get to play all my favorite genres in one song. But I like Locomotive. We've done Locomotive once or twice already. That's a great song to play. Coma's a fun song to play. It's a long song to play. I got to save my energy for that one when we play that one live. That one takes a lot out of me to play. It's a great tune, Sure. But I would say my favorite is definitely "You Could Be Mine."
If I can ask, and I said this to you off the air, you can always plead the fifth. Right. There's always like rumored set lists and everything that are out there. You never know if they're real or not, or Photoshop. We've seen some alternate songs. Like it did happen with Slither. We saw it on a leaked set list, and then it came in the set. So Slither happened. So
well, I mean, and that's the point I was trying to make before, was that, you know, there's a body of, right, there's like 40 tunes, and any of those 40 tunes could be played at a show. Not all 40, but any of those 40 tunes could be played at a show. So
can I ask, what is the rumored hard school? Is that something that the band has practiced?
Well, I think I'll just wait till, you know, the band makes any kind of formal announcements when it comes to songs like that you know, any rumors, I'll just let the band make a formal announcement before I comment on it.
Do you have your own theories as far as why it hasn't worked out, at least for one show?
I kind of know, but I don't really want to talk about that because it's not my business to really talk about.
Understood. I respect that.
Yeah. But I will say this. I recently did a documentary for an English company called Honeybee, and they're doing a documentary called Inside the Mind of Axl Rose. And I did an interview with them last week in the apartment that I lived in with them. Well, everybody but Duff at one point lived in that apartment. And it was really interesting to me. Like, a lot of stuff came up that I had completely forgotten. But, you know, they were, like, really fun guys back in the early days. And I don't know. I just remembered how much I loved Axl, and it, like, actually kind of broke me at one point. I started crying.
Uh-huh.
But after 3 hours of rapid-fire questions, that happens to me. But, you know, just being there, like, sort of brought it all back, and the fun that we used to have living there and stuff. I just hope they're still having fun with what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the optics say yes, that they do, and it's the third, right now, it's the third highest grossing tour of all time. So I guess, like you said, they can do whatever they want. It seems to be working. So what else do we have time to talk about everything else that we can expect from you, Vicky Hamilton, with everything that you have? Are you working on a movie in addition to a book? And what else?
As a matter of fact.
Okay.
Well, I'm talking to a lot of production companies, and I came very close to doing a deal with a major actor who had a production company, but in the end it, like, fell apart. But I'm very hopeful that it will come together in the near future, either as a movie or television series. I'm taking meetings in all directions, and I can see it both ways. I mean, I think if it's a real-life thing, it should be a movie, and if it's fictionalized, it should be a TV series. And, you know,
would it be based on your life or a specific band? Or
yeah, I mean, you know, probably my book.
Okay.
You know? Or at least that would be the takeoff point. But a show like the 80s, I think, would be phenomenal. In my mind, I see it as sort of a Spinal Tap meets Absolutely Fabulous with a little bit of the Marvelous Miss Maisel thrown in, you know.
Wow.
It's like, I was watching that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, my God, you know, this is kind of like the comedy version of what I do.
Wow, okay.
So I think it could be really fun. You know, it really depends on the writers. Like, I'm not a TV writer, but, you know, I've had one TV writer do a Bible and a series, you know, a first episode and a breakdown, and it could be really good.
Wow. No, I hope so. I think it absolutely would be. It would be really good. And, you know, you were... if you follow Vicky on social media, you are very opinionated about The Dirt, and that took forever to come out. And, you know, just take your time, and it's you know when it would be right. But the fact that, you know, that idea is floating around, and you and Lee are working on the book, and you're working with all these young and upcoming bands, you know, you're a busy gal. So I really, again, appreciate you taking the time to speak with me again and coming back on the show.
Oh, no problem. It's always a pleasure.
I brought it up to Ernie C from Body Count because I love how outspoken he is, and of course Ice-T for president. He is the coolest guy, and I just love following him on Twitter. So obviously since they started Body Count, this is what they've been talking about. There Goes the Neighborhood, and I mean, it's amazing. All these bands like Rage Against the Machine or Public Enemy that's been talking about this for so long, it's still happening.
Right.
So I asked Ernie C about it because Body Count did some shows with them.
and 1 in a Million was out by that time, and they were getting slack from Living Color. And Ernie, he said, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he's like, Axl is not that dude, meaning that he never treated me different. You know, he treated me like, you know, he had nothing but wonderful experiences with him. He's like, it's just lyrics, certain lyrics, you know, you have to try to get across a certain point. He didn't seem to be offended by it. And even if he was or wasn't, that's his point of view. I just wanted to hear it. I was just curious.
Right.
So I asked you, when I first reached out to you to do this episode, I asked you the same thing, because I just wanted to have an organic conversation to see what comes of it. And because you asked me for specific questions, which I usually, sometimes I have, sometimes I don't. But 1 in a Million seems to be the most obvious thing to talk about. So did you have, that song was obviously already out by the time when you were touring with them. I guess your introduction to that song, what you think about it, I guess, I would want to know your point of view on the GNR song 1 in a Million.
Okay, well, first of all, I have to say that, you know, I think that I'm glad that you want to speak about this, because it's a really uncomfortable subject for, I guess, anybody associated with GNR, and including the bandmates, and also, you know, I don't remember talking to Traci about it, but I think at the time we both kind of agreed, because I don't know, I think she was more of a GNR fan than I was, because I mean, I had seen like Welcome to the Jungle on MTV and stuff like that, but I wasn't like a fan, you know. And when I got called to do the gig, I was like, yeah, okay. You know, I had already done, I was getting off a tour with Cinderella, and I was like, yeah, let me go on the road with them, you know. And from what I learned hanging out with Slash, and didn't get any racist vibe or anything, I think it's really important to talk about this, because it's so controversial. And at the time, I didn't, maybe it was my ignorance, or I was so young, and, you know, I was just like, oh, rock and roll, you know. And because I didn't know the song, you know, I wasn't really introduced to the song, I had heard fans or non-fans say, aren't they racist? And I'm like, no. But and people would say, how about that song? And be like, what song? You know, so that's my bad. You know, it's like, that is my mistake and my ignorance of not researching, you know, the band before I started working for them. However, you know, at the time, I think, you know, I probably had the same reaction that you did, where I thought Axl was speaking from the point of view of racist America.
Right.
And that's how, you know, middle America, racist America, whatever, thinks. And he was just thinking out loud, you know. And especially because I never got personally a racist vibe from Axl. He was always not only like super sweet and kind to me, but he was very respectful. Like, you know, he wasn't like the other guys, where the other guys would cuss in front of us and be vulgar and, you know, just be rock and roll, you know. And Axl was really like, he would never cuss in front of me. He would always address me properly. He was very, very sweet to me. And so that being said, you know, I guess I couldn't let myself believe that those lyrics meant that he thought I was a nick. I almost said it. That he thought I was what he said in the lyrics, you know, the N-word.
And speaking of like GNR, and I brought up Ron Young before, we were talking about it, and he has a great voice, and he was, I just said, how come, I was asking him, like, who, did you know anybody else who auditioned for the gig? Just like kind of like a fun conversation, play what if, you know, and he wasn't sure, but he said that Slash said to him, he was really happy with it. And Gilby actually told me he pushed for Ron, but Ron's version is that Slash wanted to play Guns N' Roses songs with Snake Pit, and he felt that you had a better voice for that. But that never really happened. So was there... this is coming from a question, I'll give him credit, Beatty from Greece. Was there ever really any consideration to play Guns N' Roses songs?
We did touch on some Guns N' Roses, but not really with any of the actual bits, you know. Well, I think that Slash felt too that, I mean, he was definitely in a headspace where he wanted to establish his independence as an artist in his own right too, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So we kind of were just thinking about who has the goods to deliver it on stage. You know, I think that's probably his focus too. Like, you know, just can you perform the songs and sing it properly, you know? So really, we did some Stone songs and things on a live acoustic, you know, when we were doing radio promotion and all that prior to the release, and you know, those some great moments as well. It was a fun time.
I've had Rod Jackson on the show a couple of times, and I love that record as well, and that record is also well received. But people still, and pardon me if you've answered this before, and I'll give this question credit to Leonardo on Facebook. How come the band split up after that first record, and you weren't involved in Snake Pit 2?
That was strictly, you know, contract stuff, because I was signed to Sony shortly around the time all that was happening, so I had to deliver a record, which I did with Roger Manning Jr. in the Imperial Drag record. So that was already kind of signed and inked going in. So, I mean, we didn't have a lot of expectations for carrying this on way too long. I mean, the future was kind of wide open as well.
Oh, okay.
Nobody knew what the hell was going to happen with Guns N' Roses. And, well, I couldn't answer it.
It was too uncertain, and you had a deal. Yeah. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, that's it.
How come there's no live album? You know, because, again, people are revisit these albums all the time, and, you know, it's again regarded as you know, one of the better not GNR records in that family. So we want more, even though there may not be. Well, I guess the first question is, was there anything left on the cutting room floor that might see the light of day? And how come no live album as well?
The live album you would have to ask Slash about. He probably has tapes, maybe. I don't know, actually.
Okay.
On that, that's kind of a technical question that I never really knew to ask about at that point. But you know, I'm always open to. Slash said, "Hey, you want to sing on a song or something?" I'd be down for it, of course. But
were you approached as far as his first solo album, where he had all those different singers like Ozzy, Adam Levine, and even Velvet Revolver? Were you approached again, since you obviously had so much chemistry together?
No, I wasn't. I don't remember what exactly was going on at that time, but I could have been doing some other projects or whatnot. But yeah, I remember that.
What was going through your mind? Like, were you kind of worried about your friends and your, I don't know if he was your boyfriend at the time or husband at the time, but that's got to be crazy. Like, I could have been there, and you see like a military coup go into the country. It must have been, I don't know. That seems like an otherworldly.
You know, being on tour with Guns N' Roses was always kind of an epic, crazy adventure. Like, I remember it didn't scare me. It didn't shock me. It was kind of normal, actually, by that point, because we were backstage a lot of times when Axl was late getting to the venue. And they were telling us, if a riot breaks out, this is where you run to, and this is where the cars are. Have your stuff packed. Be prepared, you know, for, you know, craziness, you know? So it's always kind of like that.
How often would that happen? Like every show, they would say, be prepared for a riot?
Not every show, but I can remember at least 4 or 5 times vividly.
Do you know, was there ever like a specific, I guess, for what you remember, or if you feel like sharing that why he was late during that time period?
Actually, yeah, I remember it now. So it only happened like 4 or 5 times in the beginning because the head of our of the crew sat down with Axl and explained to him what happens when he's late. And once he realized that, they're all gentlemen, actually. Every single guy in the band is an astute gentleman.
I've heard
they're wild.
But that.
They're wild, but they're rock and roll, but they're gentlemen. And so when Axl realized, what his lateness was causing, he wasn't late anymore. But he was basically what I would say would cause it is different things, a variety of different things. He was doing something, catching the jet and flying in, and for whatever reasons it was late, all kinds of different things, all different reasons. But, there's often rock stars are divas.
It was a picture of you, Slash, Miles Kennedy, and Mark Tremonti. And I guess I want to ask you, because as I mentioned earlier, I talk about mental health and addiction a lot, and talked about Slash, and talked about Duff and Steven Adler. So I guess I'm just curious what experiences you may have, those worlds colliding. Have you crossed worlds at all with Guns N' Roses or maybe Velvet Revolver at the time?
I crossed paths with Slash years ago at the Sunset Marquee in L.A. Back in probably the first time I crossed paths with him in probably 1998-ish. And then across, I'm sure, I can't remember every situation, but bumped into him here or there in passing. And then, of course, the photo that you saw. But always just hey, how are you? That's it. Nothing beyond that. But he's a musical icon. He's a legend, and have much respect and admiration for the work that he's done and the legacy that he has left in music. And big fan of Guns N' Roses, man.
Right on. I guess because I was hoping that, because I've said for a long time to my listeners that if Velvet Revolver was, because they tried finding a new lead singer, before Scott passed, but when he was fired, and I always thought you would have been a perfect fit. So there was part of me hoping that was a secret somewhere, that you would have been thought of as a new lead singer for Velvet Revolver. But I guess only in my dreams that happens.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought.
All right. Well, I'll let you think about it. Maybe, who knows, in the future, everyone's bored right now. Maybe you'll do something together. Who knows? Again, that'll probably just be a dream of mine. Scott, just thank you so much. I know you have a lot to get to today. Is there anything that you want to leave us with as far as what we could look forward to, whether it's another single release? And I mean, I know you mentioned some of the Zoom shows or the Facebook Live shows, but is there anything specific that you want to perhaps get us excited about?
Yeah, I think let me backtrack a little bit. I'm definitely focused on World I Used to Know right now, and just getting the word out with that track. It's a track that I had always intended on releasing. It just felt like the time was now, and so I'm excited to share that with the fans and with those who may not know of my solo music. And so that's exciting. And then I'm creating new music. And so, I'm excited that when that comes fully into fruition, I can share that
great
with the rock community. And then, for those that are still at home or didn't see, I did an acoustic show online and played some really heavy tunes, man, acoustic. So you can find that on my Facebook page, on my Instagram page, and we'll make sure to get you the exact locations and links for that, because for those folks out there that like to hear heavy riff-driven tunes played acoustic but with that same energy, I think it's right up their alley, man.
And I got this this question. I'm not sure if you addressed it in the book. This is from Nicholas Florentine, because you shared a bill with Slash and Guns N' Roses in Rock in Rio 2 back in 1991. And now there was a rumor, maybe a small controversy, if you want to call it that Axl didn't allow you to enter the stage with your motorcycle. Is that true, or is is Nicholas just making that up?
Well, it's one of these kind of urban legend myths that I do remember vividly on the day that I was told that I wasn't able to use the bike, and I said, well, who's saying that, and I said, it's Axl. And I thought, well, that's pretty, man, if that's true, that's not rock and roll, As the day was progressing, and we were trying to figure out, what was going to happen, because the bike has always been part of a pre-show. The word got back that, it's still for you to use the bike. And then a little bit further along, I found out that Axl had never said, hey, Rob can't use the bike. It come through some other channel, and, never quite figured out the truth of that. I've never met Axl in my life. I would like to, and I'm sure I will at some point, because, again, he's someone that I have tremendous admiration and respect for as a great singer-songwriter, incredibly powerful, charismatic frontman. And so there you go. Rock and roll is full of the kind of almost good-type stories. But at the end of the story is that, of course, I did use the bike, and we had a great show at Rock in Rio with Guns N' Roses, and that's become kind of a bit of rock and roll history right there.
See, that's fascinating, and that's exactly why we need your point of view, why you need to confess, to set the record straight for so many of these different stories. And then that's just one of these rock and roll stories that gets twisted that perhaps didn't come from the source. So that's fascinating. Now, I know you didn't spend time in the album, but I don't know what you may know about this situation, but obviously Gilby Clarke famously re-recorded Izzy's parts.
Yes.
And as I look at it like this, and it's kind of like it was the approach with Chinese Democracy, I like that you're incorporating the band that you have now, and they're not just a touring musician. I like that they're involved in the recording, even though if it's a re-recording or whatever. So when Gilby re-recorded Izzy's guitar parts, how did that go over with the rest of the band? Was there a sense that did you feel any sort of friction start to begin there, or?
No, not really, because everybody really liked Gilby. Particularly Slash and Duff. I mean, they loved Gilby. And so, no, I don't think there was any pushback at all. It was kind of like, I think everybody felt like, nobody's ever said this to me, but the sense that I got was that everybody was kind of, their feelings were hurt, that Izzy just failed. Kind of without warning, really. He just failed. I guess you could see the writing on the wall if you really look close enough. But, he was traveling on his own, and we all thought that was just to maintain his sobriety. But it didn't surprise me when the directive came that he wasn't going to be on the record and Gilby's parts were going to be there. I don't think anybody was alarmed or upset about that call at all.
Okay, no, that's cool, and Gilby seems to be friends with all of them, so that relationship has obviously continued. The Simpsons, I think, are slightly younger than I am, so it's always been in my consciousness. I always feel like I've learned most things that I didn't learn in school. I've learned from The Simpsons or from Spinal Tap. So I want to ask you, because I know I don't have you here for too much longer, with Spinal Tap, which obviously it's still, I can't believe how relevant it still is today. It's not even just with rock, but it can be, the parallels are infinite. So there was because this is a GNR theme, Guns N' Roses themed podcast, to kind of make it different than just a rock or a talk podcast. There was a an excerpt in Slash's book that one time Axl was so late, he decided to watch the entire Spinal Tap movie. Slash did, and then when the show finally happened, he was so depressed because he couldn't realize how much Guns N' Roses related to Spinal Tap. Have you heard that story, or have you heard that from other bands as well?
I had heard that story, but you talk about not just being relevant to rock. I've had classical musicians come up to me and say they take the video or the DVD or whatever form it's in on the bus when they're traveling because it relates to their life too. It's really the life in music. The particular form the music takes doesn't seem to. I've had country artists tell me that as well down in Nashville, where they all live apparently. So yeah, I mean, I think we hit something and I think the reason was because we were obviously trying to make a funny movie, but we were trying to make a movie that was true. We were trying to make a movie that sort of just collapsed all the funny things we'd ever heard about life on the road or that we'd experienced ourselves and just took out the boring parts as opposed to making stuff, making just stuff out of wouldn't it be funny if they, stepped on a cat?
Right.
Just real stuff. And I think the reality of it is what makes it relatable to people in fields of music far, far from heavy metal or hard rock.
That's why, for me, I put up The Mighty Wind the same way, and that's why I relate to so much of the Simpsons. It's not just a cartoon to me. It's obviously there are the very silly parts, but so much of it is so relatable. So a couple of quick questions before I let you go. Is it true that OUTTRO was based on Slash, or I guess the drawings? I want to know. I guess the GNR references.
What the drawings were based on, because the voices and the visual people never meet. But no, the voice wasn't. No.
Okay. Is there an inspiration you get for Otto's voice?
No, just sort of a toker that I may have run into along the way somewhere.
Okay. And do you know which came first, Duff Beer or Duff McKagan?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. I think that's
you have stumped the guest.
And one, because I have one more, and you don't have to say it, because there was a story that came out years ago when Spinal Tap played Wembley Stadium for the Freddie Mercury tribute concert, and somebody in GNR played a trick by pulling, I don't know if it was your amp out or...
Nigel. It was Nigel.
And you don't have to say it now, but do you know who may or may not have done that?
Our keyboard player knows.
Okay. Okay. He'll be next on my guest list then.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to pass on a rumor. To me, it's a rumor.
Okay,
I
understood. I know Slash is a huge pinball nut, that he has a lot in his house. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, and I forget the guy's name, like Slash has his own personal pinball guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably know, I'm sure you know who he is.
I do, yeah.
And I reached out to him, and I think maybe he was weirded out. He's like, why does somebody want to interview me? I'm just a pinball guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask you.
His name's Pat Choi.
That's it. Yeah, Pat. I'm like, I'm not going to ask you blueprints about Slash's house. I just want to, like, I'm talking to you. So now was it Slash who, or was it Pat? Like, who's the one that was the catalyst?
So Jack Guarneri and Slash actually go back quite a few years. Jack was one of the first people to ever sell pinball machines online. He started a company back in the 90s called pinballsales.com. And through that company, he had many, many high-profile clients. One of those clients was Slash. And so they had a good relationship. He sold Slash a couple games. And when Slash came to play in New York or Jersey, Jack would go and meet him and hang out with him and, be able to talk pinball. Obviously, Slash is one of the biggest superstars in the world, and most people have a hard time, treating him like one of the guys, because he's Slash. But when it comes to pinball, it's like Slash is one of the guys. He just wants to play the game and hang out. So that's, I think, what helped him and Jack form such a great relationship. And Slash, in I think 2017, 2015, something like that. He's told the story a couple times now. He was at the airport waiting to get on a flight, and he was standing in like the vestibule or the United room or whatever it was, or he was just standing somewhere where he was quiet, and he called Jack, and he's like, Jack, we got to make a new game together. We have to make a Not This Lifetime tour themed game. And here's all the stuff that I want to see. And he started listing off all these different things, you know, like all the concert footage and us on stage and the big features for me and for Axl and for Duff. And it's got to have all this stuff. And Jack's just like, well, that sounds pretty cool. / let me talk to the guys and see what we can work out. And then a couple weeks later, you know, they got back together and said, this is definitely something we want to do. Let me introduce you to Eric Meunier, and he is going to be the game designer. And you guys, you know, shoot it around and talk about your ideas and concepts and what you have going on. And so / came to that meeting, I'm not joking, with a portfolio of ideas. He had hand-drawn play fields. He had ideas for mechanisms. He had artwork concepts. He is a pinball designer, you know? Wow. So that's why I'm credited, / and I are credited as co-designers on this game. Okay. You know, I'm the one who did the math and, you know, the mechanism design and making the layout and stuff work like that. That / was with me every step of the way. I'm not exaggerating. Literally every day during the design concepts of this game, / and I were texting back and forth, you know, going through ideas, going through art concepts, and he was just all in all the time. And then I would text him like, hey, I have a question about, you know, how we should do X, Y, and Z. And he would Facebook chat me, or sorry, not Facebook, he would like Zoom with me. And I'm like, oh, where are you at, dude? Because and he's just like, yeah, I'm in New Zealand. It's 4 a.m. And he's like laying in his hotel room, you know. He's just like, yeah, we just finished up the show, but what do you got going? I'm like, sure, let's go into this, you know, because time was just irrelevant to him when it came to talking pinball. He just wanted to be a part of it and wanted to be into it. So
that's something else too, and it shows the level of his intelligence. Obviously, you know, you're saying you're doing the math portion of it, but for him to go to you and have these layouts, to have these designs, I don't know if you've experienced that necessarily with maybe other celebrities who've come to you for gaming, but I got to imagine in other fields, like if a celebrity is going into a specific field that they might not know about, you know, if it's architecture or something, they're drawing circles, they're drawing, you know, something that may not be professional standard. But it seems like he impressed you with this professional standard. Like if you were going to work with another professional designer,
yeah,
right? Like he
absolutely did everything right. I mean, he's one of the few people, even in the pinball industry, who I felt comfortable explaining an idea to and felt like he understood. You know, most people, when they come up to a new pinball machine that doesn't have any art on it,
right?
Okay, it's called a whitewood. It's just a piece of plywood that has some lights and some ramps. And I would explain to him, like, here's the concept of what this is supposed to do, what that's supposed to do. You know, this shot goes around. And he's one of the few people I've ever met who's just, Eric, I understand what you're doing, and I can see it, and I understand the vision. And then he'd provide feedback. Like, what if we did, you know, this, and we had the, you know, collecting the band member on this shot because it's a drumstick ramp, you know, and that's where we should collect Frank. And he would just come at us with ideas that built off of what I did. And it was just a great relationship.
Just I'm always continuously impressed with Slash. Just like he's just not that. He's more than just a guitar player with the top hat. He's always doing something.
Absolutely.
Something else.
I did not expect him to be the way he was. Right. I mean, a superstar of his status, you just expect a certain personality. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Slash was the most down-to-earth, cool, understanding guy. When he came into the office, he's been here a couple times now, before COVID, like, I say that he introduced himself, but obviously he doesn't need to introduce himself.
Right.
But he shook hands with every single member of the team and like had a conversation one-on-one with every team member. Like, okay, what do you do? I'm a mechanical engineer. Okay, what does that actually mean? You know, how are you involved in the game? And, oh, you're a programmer. What part of the programming are you doing? And you're the artist. Oh, I love that. I love what you did with my likeness here and that sort of stuff. Like, just talked down to earth completely, had dinner with us all, and was just telling us stories about him with Miles Kennedy and, you know, hanging out with GNR getting back on the road and that sort of stuff. He was cool, down to earth, no level of arrogance, no level of superiority. You know, he was just one of the guys, and it was fantastic.
This is a fun, I guess, story. Maybe you can elaborate on it. This is from my buddy, former. He used to work in Nikki Sixx's show, and he's like, it's so funny. He works for iHeart, but out in Los Angeles, so I never see him. I don't know him, and he just happened to find my podcast one day. We've become we're coworkers now. We're friends. So this is from Mike. He says, fun fact, I was actually at Gilby's first show, December 5th, 1991, at the Worcester Centrum. He told me and
right on.
Yeah, so he said because he worked in radio, he told me and the others at that lunch, because I guess this was with his old boss at Universal Music, so for some context. During that first show, during a solo, Slash's, you ducked backstage and puked. Axl came back, saw him.
That's not true.
Okay, so I don't know why this guy is telling me a story that didn't happen, because he's like, Axl came back, saw him puking, and are you okay? So that did not happen.
No.
Okay.
But Axl did visit me during the show, and it was during Slash's solo. It came back to, all the guys, it was my first show, go, hey, man, are you okay? When we had a break or a moment, like Duff, Duff and I were next to each other. But, everybody's going, hey, man, are you okay? Everything going well? And when Axl came to check on me, I was eating a pizza. Literally eating a pizza. And he's going, hey, man, are you okay? Everything all right? I go, yeah. I'm just hungry. I didn't realize how long the show was.
That's a better story.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've told it before,
Okay.
Anybody knows me, I don't puke before or after shows. I'm not a nervous person.
Okay, because, again, I was surprised, and I guess I would rather ask, I'm
not saying somebody wasn't puking. It just wasn't me.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. This is from B. Garba on Twitter. Ask him why he always played Wild Horses, and Axl presenting him as the man with the new Corvette.
Oh, yeah. So that's kind of interesting because at the very first show, I didn't expect to have a solo spot like hey, ladies and gentlemen, Gilby Clarke, where before it was, ladies and gentlemen, Izzy Stradlin. And, Slash is the lead guitar player. I'm not going to sit up there and doodle away when Slash is doodling away. It's just stupid, So they came up to me before the first show. They go, hey, what are you going to do for your solo part? And I was like, solo part? What are you talking about? I'm not going to sit there and do a solo before Slash does one. That, ain't going to happen. And so he goes, well, Izzy used to do, I forgot what they told me. They said Izzy used to do something like a Stones kind of thing. And that's why I went, oh, well, why don't I do Wild Horses? I go, I'll just leave me by myself and I'll do like a Wild Horses and maybe I'll sing a little or something and I'll make it kind of cool. Well, when I started doing it, Slash started doodling with me. And what you saw through those years is it developing, but it all developed live. We never sat down and said, hey, it's going to go like this. That literally happened at the first show.
That's awesome.
Of me playing Wild Horses and Slash walking up behind me doodling.
That's rock and roll.
And that's why it happened. Exactly. I mean, it was very natural. I mean, if anybody really knew the ins and outs of GNR during that time, there wasn't a lot of pre-thought into anything. Stuff just happened.
Fair enough.
But the man with the new Corvette thing was funny because, and this story is out there too, but the truth is, the band, the Tokyo shows, we did 3 shows, and the band made a lot of money in merchandise. So, like after the first or second show, it was, hey, man, we made so much money. Oh, my God. And then guys are, excited about that. And I was just like, I didn't get merchandise. That wasn't part of my deal. And I was like, oh, well, enjoy it. And I go, I hope I get a new car out of it or whatever. And Duff ended up buying me, actually gave me his Corvette. But it didn't just give it to me. I traded him a shirt for it. I used to have this black mesh shirt I wore back in the day, and Duff used to steal it from me. Like even before I can go wear it, he was wearing it, and so we actually traded the shirt for his vet that he had at that time.
So I mean, because you've obviously had a lot of you've worked with so many different artists over the years, collaborating. So I guess one question is, because I was just looking this up, someone sent me a video. Roadhouse Blues that you did with Scott Weiland. So if you can remember, this was, I think, I believe in 2000. So I'm just curious, do you remember, unfortunately, another lead singer who left us too soon, what it was like playing with Scott?
That was great. In fact, it was his whole band was there, and they played on this. It was like a Doors tribute band, or maybe you're thinking of the TV show, the Storyteller.
This was the House of Blues LA that I'm looking at. And
House of...
Yeah, it was with Stone Temple Pilots. It was with the whole band.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, he was a big Doors fan, and he played on quite a few of our little, like I said, he did this TV show Storytellers with us, and I sat in with those guys at a couple of concerts. Where was it? Bonnaroo, I think. And those are cool guys, and my friend Robert DeLeo is the bass player for Stone Temple Pilots, has done a lot of stuff with us too.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I mean, obviously, so it's great that when you love these, I mean, I look at them as bands I grew up with technically, but they're fans of yours. These big rock stars are fans of yours. So what I love on this reissue of Morrison Hotel, we're hearing these cover versions of music that you loved. So going back even further. So can you talk to me a little bit about B.B. King? Because you guys you jammed on Rock Me, and he's another one of just the greats. I did get a chance to see B.B. thankfully before he passed away.
Good, yeah, he's great. Well, Ray Manzarek grew up in Chicago, so he used to go see Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and all those guys, quite often. And one time he asked to sit in. I think it was with Muddy, but he didn't get the job. At least he asked. And then I remember one time we were in Chicago, and Ray took us all to see Howlin' Wolf. And boy, that was amazing.
Wow. Is there, because I still, obviously we want to focus, we can go so many different ways, and I know we're short on time. Is there a favorite song that you wrote that's on Morrison Hotel? Is it Peace Frog? Is it, what's your favorite, or does it change? Has it changed throughout over the years?
Yeah, actually on this album, I didn't write any of the words. It's all Jim Morrison's words, but I wrote a lot of the music. And Peace Frog is probably my favorite one. I had the music for that all done, and I couldn't think of any words, and I asked Jim, to write some words for it, and he wasn't coming up with anything. So finally, he looked in his book, in his notes that he always kept with him. A lot of stuff was way early, like he wrote even in high school and stuff. And he found this poem called Abortion Stories. And if you listen to the words, Peace Frog, you can tell it's about an abortion. Blood in the streets in the town of Chicago, and chicane. You wouldn't think when you first heard it that it was about an abortion, but so anyway, we obviously couldn't call it Abortion Stories. I guess we could have, but it would be kind of weird. So he came up with somehow Peace Frog. There's nothing to do with the song,
Wow.
But I love it.
So let me ask you, and you don't have to, and I know you've been,
Sure.
You're so honest and nice, but I always give all my guests, like, if you don't want to answer it, say pass. Because you're touching on what is sensitive to a theme for my listeners, and that's, Guns N' Roses not putting out new music, and we don't, and you're updating fans. We want to get updates from Axl or Slash and Duff do new stuff. The details about Gino are very few and far in between. So I guess your thoughts on, because you've also dealt with rat naming problems. We don't have to get into specifics there. So how do you feel, or what have you thought over the years about when it was Guns N' Roses, Axl, and whether it's Buckethead or Robin Fink, but it wasn't the classic lineup, the one that you met, and then now they can tour. You know, it's the fourth most successful tour of all time. A band that you you were along with, and they're not putting out new music. Do you give a thought on that? Again, you could say pass.
Well,
if
I
you
can
want.
answer that.
Okay,
I can answer that. Yeah. Well, some people are lazy. Number one.
Okay.
Musicians, they want to live off their laurels, their past successes, or whatever. That's all fine and dandy. That's their trip. I live a whole another world. No better, no worse, no more successful or sucking. So we'll put that out there. But I find bands that don't want to do that just, I don't know, not inspiring to even their own selves or their audience. And because I know a lot of bands and people, they just don't think it's important. Like my bass player's not breaking down any, walls trying to get music out with me for Rat. And I can say it because I'm the one that's having to end up doing a solo record, and the songs sound like Rat because I know people want to hear new music, and I happen to be the singer guy, but you literally can just be a jukebox, is what you're saying, right? Just going through the motions, and the people still want to,
I want more than that. When you reformed, when you got back with Rat, the legacy was great, but we want to hear
the people in the band don't matter. After a while, it's just a marquee. It's a proven fact. Okay, unless you're a lead singer guy going out there, or an Ed Van Halen guitar player, or a Buckethead who's amazing. I love him, and all those guys are great. I mean, there's so many great players. But I mean, look, in our band right now, Rat. Hey, look, I'm honest. You have two original guys. And at one time you had 3. At one time you had 5. You had 4. Now it's down to 2. People just want to hear the songs. They just want to hear the songs. That's all they want to do, and maybe see some commotion up there or something. What they hear about you. Well, let's see if he falls off the stage.
Living up to a certain aura, or just living up to your persona, of just trying to is he going to be late, or is he going to act, he's going to show up drunk or something like that, just trying to
Yeah, well, you're right. That is an interesting subject, but I just think it's
not holding you back.
A lot of people, like you said, you said you hit the nail on the head when you said Geico commercial. People are discovering us from the Geico commercial. They don't know that the guy's playing in the band, and I'm being honest here. It's my band, They don't know it's no Robin. That's not Robin or Bobby or drummer or Warren. They don't know, unless they're a real mega fan and they want to go. They'll take it as they get it. And there's a lot of people who are like that. They could give a shit if there's one guy or two guys, but they're hoping the singer's the same.
You're right.
Unless you're an iconic guitar player guy like a Warren DeMartini or an Ed or a Slash or whoever, then it's okay. You're accepted. It's acceptable. But on the other end, I think people, I don't know about some others. I can just speak for myself. I like being updated. I'd like to show that there's still some music out there, that you can still create, and people will like it. It doesn't have. I could give a shit if my records, sell 100 or 100 million, as long as it does something for me. And at the end of the day, somebody else likes it. I've had it's great having a success with music and this and that. But eventually, some people, it's a little different. That's not what just matters. To me, that's not all that matters is, I like to keep creating. I like to let people know there's more there, yes, there's more music in us, But when I can't do it with my band, Rat, I just go do it on my own, and I'm very comfortable with that, But I get what you're saying, But when you're around that long, like a GNR now, or Rats or Motley's, you can just play your catalog and people will love it. why the need to go into the studio and try to perfect or beat the best record? We never go into a recording a record going, we're going to, sell 50 million this time. You just do the best you can, and that's all you can do.
I think it's inspiring what you're talking about. I think it's inspiring because you're somebody that, and the commercial is showing it. You can rest on your laurels if you want to. You can just tour on that if you want to. But you, as a songwriter, as a guitar player, you're like, okay, that's cool. I'm not ashamed of, the person, the girl that I took to the dance. I'm not ashamed of that. But I'm moving forward. I'm experimenting. I'm still putting out my voice and my feelings out there. And if you like it, great. 100%. If you don't, okay. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but there are far and few because I see it. A lot of people don't. I mean, when you got these other, put it this way, there's, you get into the hair metal, you call it. If you're going to categorize it, those kind of bands, there's still a handful of them that are still creating. Tom Kiefer will put out a record for Cinderella,
he's been on the show.
It ends up being solo. But it's a Cinderella fucking record. And Fred Coy's a real good friend of mine, Sure. And put it this way, any songs that end up on a solo record could have been rap songs. I mean, I wrote a couple songs, and specifically, if you look for it, the one I was mentioning to you, go on my side, it's up there. It sounds like Rat. And if Rat really put its, pause into the song, it could have really been a Rat song. And I offered it up, but if you got somebody in the band that does your own band, that's like, no, not right now. Well, all that does is, number one, piss me off. And number two, it makes you want to go be more creative with somebody else,
And this is, I guess, the primary question I got from listeners. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Live Era. It's a live album, double album that came out in 1999 from it's the best of 87 to 93. I had no idea, and I guess, Doug, if you can confirm this, that a lot of the tracks were re-recorded by Axl. That it was kind of live. Okay, so live in air quotes. Matt, before Doug, I guess, responds, did you know that? Because I'm just, I guess, an idiot fan that I'm like, oh, it's a live album. It sounds great. I had no idea.
So, yeah, that's great. A question to get into. I kind of floated that to Jim Mitchell because, as we all know, live albums in rock, how live is it? And as I recall Jim being, he's a classy guy, and that's not his thing to say anything about that. So I think he kind of said, as most of it or a lot of it, or he kind of, in a classiest way possible, wouldn't get into that. But I'm sure Doug knows.
Matt. Yeah, it was basically all we were doing was calling out fixes. It was the original recorded material, but Slash spent most of the time redubbing tracks. And it wasn't like Slash is the most fallible guy in the band. He just is very concise and considers what the fans are going to listen to. And so if he had made any errors, then he would go back and redo the tracks. Axl did a couple of fixes, but from what I remember, it certainly wasn't every track.
Okay.
And they were fixes as opposed to redoing the whole thing. Unlike, by the way, Live Like a Suicide, where you've got canned audience noise, which just drives me crazy.
That's it. Oh, so Live, like, it was canned. So that's what also people would thought about Live Era, that they were canned audience or audience
that was
pumped
real
up.
Audiences. Yeah, real audiences.
So Matt, did you even before?
I'm not a fan of the contrivances.
Yeah, right.
I never would have, and it wasn't my call at the time. I wasn't even around when Live Like a Suicide was released, right? But yeah. So when I listen to it, because I know it was canned, the Live Like a Suicide just drives me crazy. I mean, you can tell how funny it is now in retrospect.
So it's interesting that you say Slash is a perfectionist, because it seemed to be a lot of the questions were focused on an Axl re-recording, Rocket Queen. So I guess is there a reason why? Maybe like why wasn't it left with blemishes? Because it's funny because I mean this is just written in Wikipedia, so I'm sure it does have a citation. That Slash notes the album is quote not pretty and there are a lot of mistakes, but this is Guns N' Roses, not the fucking Manavishnu Orchestra. I had to pronounce that right. It's as honest as it gets, which I guess is not true. So that's it.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, they didn't redo the entire record. Like I said, there were fixes. And by the way, and Matt, you can attest to this. That's pretty common. When somebody does a live record, they just don't put it out live. I mean, they go back and make sure that if there's some horrendous takes or mistakes, I guess, that they fix them before release. It wasn't that uncommon, certainly not at the time.
It's not uncommon now either. And I'm mad. I'm sorry, because we at iHeart we have a lot of live performances. I mean, mainly before the pandemic and downstairs. So there would be mixes of the show, like record release parties. So I mean, yes, that is common, but it just seems I don't know what if they needed to be redone. If there was so much to choose from, why weren't like other performances chosen? I guess like why.
And again, you nailed it in the head, though, Brando. There were so many choices that from tracks to versions of tracks that they found the ones with the least mistakes, and then Slash would go in and do his fixes. Duff spent a little bit of time doing his fixes, and Axl did his fixes, but it wasn't, again, like you said, they're picking the best, but what they went for wasn't necessarily the tracks with the fewest mistakes. They wanted to go for the best energy, right? Because that's what you want to capture inside of a live record, is what tracks really put out the best energy.
Matt, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
To Doug's point, it would be the exception, not the rule, for a band to put out a raw live thing.
I do. I've worked in terrestrial radio. I know, but that's what the numbers show. They want to hear "Stairway to Heaven" 6 times a day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
So it's nice to have like a little detour, I think, sometimes on radio where an artist can showcase their hidden gems that they dig. You know, it's kind of fun.
If he needs any podcasting advice or editing advice, you can send them my way.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, that'd be much appreciated.
So you've told us a lot about what is to expect, and I guess we can't announce anything because everything's on hold. So I guess the best way to keep up to date with you is, because you are active on Twitter, you are active on Instagram, so that's just the best way to keep up to date with all things Susan Holmes McKagan.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'm Susan Holmes McKagan, and on Twitter it's @Sue Holmes McKagan, because you can't fit the whole thing. My name's too ding dang long, but yeah, I try and post daily and behind the scenes and funny or inspiring stuff, or our latest stuff going on. And I will say GNR have been working fastidiously on some killer new stuff, and I can't say much, but I've heard bits and bobs, and it's pretty epic.
Well, I think you just saying that is going to make a lot of fans happy.
Yeah, so I do want to spread good news, but not detailed news, I guess. So
to me,
hopefully they'll put a spring in some of y'all's step.
I look at it differently, and if I can ask, because I thought it was a very interesting question. One of my listeners posted. This is from Matt, and this is from Poland. And obviously, you're great. I mean, coming on my podcast not just once but twice, you're awesome. And these are always what I do.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm
honored.
I'm honored. But it's interesting for me because, as I mentioned before, I've done terrestrial radio. I was the doofus that talks between the Stones and Billy Squire for 30 seconds. But doing this GNR themed podcast can be interesting because I know there are a lot of broadcasters out there or sites that want a certain headline or want a certain dirt, and that's just not my that's not my approach. But for you, who already you have your own aspirations. You are successful in your own right, not attached to Duff. But you're
thanks for commenting on that.
Well, it's true because you are successful despite including that. However, you said it earlier where you really like when fans come up to you during the show or during shows. I mean, it's one thing for them to come up to you.
We love our fans. I love our fans. Like I said, when we go on the next Guns N' Roses tour, we're going to make it a point, Duff and I, to go out and say hi to our fans.
Who's going to replace Mick and Steven Tyler and, you know, all these great rock and roll frontmen? Who are the next generation, right? Who are the guys that are going to take their place? You know, for the next generation to go, oh my God, this is Chris Cornell, one of the greatest rock singers of all time, in my opinion. Even Axl used to take me out. I remember when SoundCloud opened for us in Europe, and Axl goes, you got to come out. I mean, Axl was the one that brought SoundCloud on tour. He's the one that turned me on to Nine Inch Nails. He said, listen to this record. And he picked a lot of those opening bands, Blind Melon, Shannon Interlude. That was Axl's buddy. Another guy who lost.
Yeah.
And Shannon was out of his mind. That guy was so crazy. I feel like, dude, take it down a notch. Like, but he was so lovable. But, you know, it's just another case of couldn't handle the fame. He just could not handle it. And anyway, long story short, me and Axl, I remember going out. We were in Prague, Czechoslovakia. We're playing this huge stadium. And we went out, Soundgarden, he goes, check this guy out. I'm like, oh my God. And I remember standing on the side of the stage with Axl. I mean, Axl Lewis. You know? I'm like, and he loved music, man. He was very inspired by these guys, and he wanted the challenge to go up after Chris Cornell and, you know, bands like that, and show them to the world. I remember the Smashing Pumpkins opening for us in Chicago before they had a record deal.
Wow.
And Axl found out about them. He goes, hey, did you hear about this band in Chicago? He just got signed called Smashing Pumpkins. That was like 91. And I remember they were doing 2 nights with us in Chicago. They were opening. And that was when we had the St. Louis riot. And they were all set up doing their sound check. And I think we had a production guy named Opie who still works at the band. I think he went up and said, you guys can pack it up and go home. The band's not coming. You know, like, you know, because we were like basically in St. Louis. We had the huge riot. And we took off and went to Chicago. It's in the book, my book.
Right.
I remember a lot of stuff, like some of the other guys don't tell a lot of those particular stories. But I remember we took a van. We drove up to Chicago, and Axl was extra that year. You know, he was going to get extradited to Missouri, and he took off and flew back to LA to meet with some attorneys and stuff. So the gigs were canceled. You know, we'd canceled, plus all of our gear was ruined in the riot. So we couldn't have played if we wanted to.
Okay, I did not know that.
Oh my God. If you look back at the footage, even on YouTube, you know, the crowd took the stage and ruined all the equipment, sold a lot of the gear. And, you know, a lot of people were injured in that particular area.
Another tale of survival for Matt Sorum.
Yeah, we ended up leaving in the van. And it's in the book, and I don't want to tell the whole story.
No.
I don't want to spoil it.
Right.
We all rode this van up to Chicago from St. Louis. And Izzy took a bus. He split right away. And then it was probably one of the coolest van rides I've ever been in, because we were all together in a van for hours. You know, here we were at that time, being probably the biggest band in the world, like riding in this van and trying to get away from the cops, wearing full stage regalia, still in our stage clothes. You know what I mean? Axl was wearing, that night he was wearing that feather boa, and he had like a skirt on. We stopped at a Waffle House because we were all hungry. We all walked in there, yeah, full of stage gear. Everyone just looked over. Remember, we looked up on the TV and we were on the news. You know, like the riot, right? Yeah, it was a great time. And the people in St. Louis, it was weird to them and a hard situation, but wild times. But,
do you foresee, I mean, well, we got to get your book out first, but after that, do you foresee this becoming like a movie? I mean, obviously, I spoke to Cherie about the Runaways movie, and Queen and Elton John. Is there going to be a GNR movie? Do you think eventually?
I don't know.
So I'm looking at Nico. Like I said, London, Roman, and Ty. Suspect 208, and I'm really excited to talk to you. I think the world is excited to meet you. I guess first, before you answer this question a million times in your career, Suspect 208, who is that? What is that? Like, what is Suspect 208? Where'd that come from?
It's our old high school PE teacher's name.
Was Suspect 208?
That's Leonard Skinner.
God. Well played. I like that.
That's like the most common question.
Sure.
208 was the name of my studio, like the room number. And that's kind of where like me and Noah started making music together. And that was just like our sanctuary. It was where we could spend all hours of the day.
And night.
Do whatever, make music, sleep.
Dude, activities.
Parcheesi.
So
gotcha. Pokemon cards.
It's a little bit of like our secret location. It's our
okay.
But I guess for me it was like the shit that goes down there. It's from the outside. It's suspect, suspicious.
Yeah, everyone's suspicious. So what's that?
You don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Okay, I like that. I like the meaning behind that. Oh, very cool. So, Suspect 208, you dropped what? Am I wrong in assuming is an ironic title? Long awaited. Just out of nowhere, this band just drops it wasn't long awaited. It would have been if there were rumors. To be honest with you, as someone who like me who has a Guns N' Roses themed podcast, I've heard rumors. Obviously, I've known Nico in London for a while. You guys playing music for a while. Tyre, I know you're in the news when you play with Korn. People wanting to see what Roman is going to do, but all of a sudden, bam! Suspect 208 comes out with a brand new song. How did that? When did this band, I guess, come to be? I mean, have you all been friends for a while? I mean, we're going to go down that route of, I know how London and Nico became friends because the moms are friends, right? That's how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. We explain that story all the time.
Because I remember. Actually, I forget a lot of things as I mentioned, but I do.
Without knowing in detail, I've known Nico since I was a child. His mother used to work with my mom, and we would hang out.
Barbecues, birthday parties when they're like 4 or 5 years old. And someone else who was at those birthday parties and was also like part of the whole family was Noah. So
okay.
Through life, but we've never I've never like brought Noah and Nico or Ty together all at once. It's kind of just been our own little separate things.
Yeah.
So I've tried to work with him before, and he goes to us.
He left us on red.
We wanted him to play in Classless, and he ghosted.
Yeah, like 3 years ago.
Interesting.
And he was like 13 at the time.
Yeah.
Couldn't get.
So that's something else to ask. Because Roman, you're 20, and Ty, are you 15? Is that
16?
16. Okay.
I'm the youngest guy here. I'm still the kid here. So
it's totally different for us because like me and Nico have played in bands when we're the babies. I've always been the youngest.
Okay.
So, I'm 18. Nico's 18. He just turned 20. So now you're the odd man out. But in all the other bands I've played in, there's been people like 8 years older than me.
You're a veteran at 18.
Yeah. And he has been a veteran since fucking like 6. So
yeah,
Ty might be 16, but
he has more experience than any of us.
He's got the balls and the.
So
I don't know he has the balls. He's 16, but.
Ty, is this your first what was your first band then? Since you're so young and again you're making headlines without even trying.
Thank you.
So I guess because it's a big decision for you guys. It's like your friends are jamming, but it's like this is a band, this is a song. So is this your first big band together? Or for yourself rather?
I guess like I had like a childhood band back like when I was
childhood band at 16. Okay, sorry.
The Helmets, and then but then I formed into another band called OUTTRO, which I'm still in. But
Okay.
like Suspect is also like OUTTRO was kind of like my first like, I guess like first band with a good amount of recognition, and then
Okay.
like blew up.
This,
So it's
yeah,
like-
this takes on recognition and
Yeah.
nothing that like any of us ever expected.
No.
Yeah, we didn't
Like,
expect any of this.
Anything close
at
to
all.
what happened, we did not expect any of this.
Okay.
We thought this
Interesting
song would like peak at like
10K.
10K or something like that, and we didn't even know it was on YouTube too. We thought it would be like 10K on like SoundCloud or something like that, or like Spotify. I don't even.
I want to look that up. What is the last number on YouTube for you guys? It was like 500,000, right?
It's like
It was
800,000 now.
Wow.
Almost at a million.
I mean, okay. As you're saying that, so because I'm glad you said that about this wasn't planned, because it's like you almost played like fantasy sports, like fantasy, like a draft. Honestly, like if you have your established players, I make a lot of sports musician analogies. So there's a lot of players already, established musicians, bands already out there in the field, but they're like, okay, who's the next? And I want to draft the best. Who's out there? What are big names? I would have put you guys together. So the fact that this wasn't some sort of someone's brainchild, I guess it just happened organically.
And this is just like, this isn't some like,
Because like first it was me and I was just making like rap and R&B just because it was like fun, and it's like that's honestly only what I listen to even still. Like,
okay, interesting.
And what was I gonna say? So I was making that, and then he was like, no. I was like curious to how I could do on rock, because when I was little, I could kind of like, I always was like into like My Chemical Romance and like Green Day and like Nirvana and stuff. just you know what I mean? And like, and
Me too.
and what was I gonna say? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and make something like more like rock based. And then the first thing I did was one of the songs I put out was called That Summer, and people liked it, and it did pretty good. And because I had like only like 1,000 something followers or anything, so obviously I didn't expect it to be big or anything, but it actually did pretty good. So then I was like, well, like before that, a lot of people like listen to it before I put it out, and then he heard it and he was like, dude, we got to do something. So then we went to the studio one time, made a song together from scratch, and it was like fast, and it just happened quick, and it just was good. Then another time he sent me like he just started sending me guitar stuff. I started like adding stuff to it and making songs from it, and then released that. It did good. Then he was like, okay, let's see if like Nico would be down to like work with us. And he hit up Ty too. It was like, oh, you should work with like me and Noah because we're doing stuff. So we kind of wanted to just me and him collaborate with like a bunch of different people, and then it kind of just like formed together, because like just three of us made a song first, and it was one of my songs, but they're like credited obviously on the song, and then that's when I came in the picture.
And that's interesting. I mean, that's cool. We're really learning about the formulation of it, which is what I wanted. But Roman, that's interesting that you I guess you prefer hip hop. Like, who are your some of your favorite artists? I guess that's because I'm not gonna lie. Ever since the '90s, I kind of like tapped out. Do you listen to Heavy D? Heavy D and the Boys? No.
I honestly don't listen to like any like older like rap or art. Okay. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like,
no, I know. I was kind of like people hear the Heavy D reference will laugh anyway. So
I guarantee you, most people would think like most of like the people that like our music, at least so far, would think I'm just like would be blown away by how trash they would think it is. But I like Chris Brown. I like The Weeknd, Tory Lanez, NBA YoungBoy, Young Thug, and just like it. But somehow it's like because it's all like really, it's not like straight rap. It's like melodic or like singing rap. So it's like that's kind of how like I started learning how to like make melodies, like hearing from that, because it's really melodic. So that's why like a lot of my songs are like super melodic, because it comes from like hearing that. Because I don't really have much of a background for rock music. Like I don't have a big catalog that I ever really got into.
Then what comes with, and in London we spoke about this, episode 40, as far as, the motivation to become a drummer, not wanting to be a guitarist, not wanting to be in that, that shadow, I guess. And Ty, you can comment on this if you want. But Roman, is there a pressure to, because again, you weren't thinking about singing rock. Did you not want to sing rock? Then all of a sudden, was there kind of like a hesitance to sing rock given your background as well?
I mean, I did when I was little. I wanted to, but then I stopped listening to all that stuff. And it's like, starting from like 8th grade up until now, it's just been like strictly, well, not like strictly. I obviously have my moments where I listen to other genres, but like 75% of the music I listen to is just rap and R&B.
Okay.
You can kind of like hear it in like the way I like
melodic and lyrical. And that's funny. I think
lyrically too, but also the way I like kind of go fast while I'm like singing.
Kind of rap.
Yeah, it's kind of rap-ish in a way.
That's what's like unique about it. To me, it's what's cool about We Do, because like we're not just like a rock band. I mean, the song we're gonna put out, everything is just
Our next song is about to be a lot different. I mean, obviously not like rap or R&B. I'm just saying it's like we're gonna show like a good
different side.
Different side.
Sure.
I think that because it's like everyone kind of brings a different influence. Like Ty, the way he plays and what he's listened to, and his riffs are very like punk and metal, and and hard, and like Noah's melodies are very melodic and like pretty, and it's like it all kind of I'm a big fan of like classic rock as well as like new indie and alternative stuff. So that kind of all eclectically combines to become something that's kind of a weird mix of all of them.
It's just nothing that's like out there today right now. I mean, the shit that we're gonna come out with, I think it lacks what's out there, like lacks soul. Everyone's just trying to put out a number one hit and very overproduced. We're doing everything ourselves.
Yeah.
As of now, so we're not gonna stay like tied down.
Mm-hmm.
So that does it for the best of 2020 for Appetite for Distortion. Thank you so much for hanging out and reliving these moments with me. I would be remiss, and I will not end the episode without thanking Graham from Scotland, TNK Studios, I Was Life. You may remember those names, his name from the interview, the episode that we did about his Izzy Stradlin documentary. I hope you got to see it, like many Guns N' Roses things on the internet. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But follow iOS Life or TNK Studios on Twitter for updates about the Izzy doc. But he's just one of the many people I have to thank for getting this far with this 6 Degrees of Guns N' Roses Bacon podcast. So thank you to Brett and Alternative Nation, who have just consistently from episode 20, so going back further than this year, has helped me promote my podcast and transcribe many of my interviews, which, much like Graham, it's a tough task. So another person helped me out promote my podcast. UltimateGuitar.com, Blabbermouth. They constantly, share my interviews and getting my name out there. There are a lot of others, but I know Ultimate Guitar and Blabbermouth, along with Alternative Nation, share and transcribe more than any other rock news outlet. But last and certainly not least, I need to thank you. There's no way I do this podcast without you. Yes, I've gotten to interview some awesome people. I feel very fulfilled that I happen to make this kind of hobby podcast and kind of cross over and intertwine it with my radio career, so it's become very fulfilling. But the reason I keep going, keep doing this, is because of you. Whether you are one of the people who comment all the time on Twitter or Facebook and Instagram, and I see you, I try to like everyone's comments or acknowledge them. Whether you are private, you rarely, if ever, comment on my stuff, but you DM me support. You private message me. I heard this episode. This was great. Thank you. Those of who have participated in the episodes, whether it's as a co-host, whether it's we've done these Riot episodes involving you, fans. So thank you for making Appetite for Distortion what it is and, well, what it could be. So let's see what 2021 brings. Hopefully a new Guns N' Roses album. Probably not.
I don't believe you, Axel.
But we're going to be here. We're going to be waiting. And what's to come on the podcast? Who will be the guests that we're going to have on the show in 2021? Well, there's only one way to find out. You got to stick around. You got to follow the podcast on social media. Facebook.com/The AFD Show. Twitter @The AFD Show. Instagram, Appetite for Distortion. That is how the conversation continues in between the podcasts. So, who will be the next guests? When will you see these episodes? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.